My crush used the love letter I wrote for her to confess to another man in front of the entire academy. Sophie Lane stood beneath the Founders Hall chandelier with my words in her hands, and Adrian crossed the student everyone called our school king waiting on the stage. You once told me that love should make a person braver, not smaller, she read into the microphone. You make me want to stand where everyone can see what I choose. I had written that sentence at 2 in the morning after Sophie asked me to help organize her thoughts. She told me the letter was for a scholarship interview, about personal courage. Now 2,000 students watched her offer it to Adrian. He accepted the page with a smile practiced for cameras. Tall, polished, and heir to the cross-education network, Adrian had spent 3 years becoming the center of every room at Kingswell Academy. Sophie had spent 3 months using me as the path toward him. She asked me to edit her applications because Adrian led the scholarship council. She asked me to photograph her at charity events because Adrian managed the academy's social feed. She asked me what music he liked, which coffee he ordered, and where he studied when he wanted privacy. I answered every question because I believed helping her succeed would eventually make her see me. Instead, I had made her perfectly visible to him. The applause began near the stage and spread through the hall. Sophie looked toward me in the 3rd row. For 1 second, guilt interrupted her smile. Then Adrian touched her waist and drew her beside him. I think everyone deserves to know, he said into the microphone, that Sophie has become very important to me. The crowd reacted louder. I stood because staying seated felt like allowing my humiliation to become part of the ceremony. The aisle seemed impossibly long. Sophie stepped away from Adrian. Evan, wait. I stopped only because she had finally said my name in public. Did you know? I asked. She held my letter against her dress. I was going to tell you after tonight. That you used my words? That Adrian and I were getting closer. You knew I liked him. You told me the letter was for an interview. Because if I told you the truth, you would have made this about your feelings. The cruelty was quiet enough that only the closest microphones caught it. Adrian descended from the stage. He placed himself between us without touching me. This is not the place for a private disagreement, he said. You made it public when you accepted my work as her confession. His smile changed. Your work? Sophie gripped the page. Before she could answer, the great doors of Founders Hall opened. Celeste Rowan entered with 6 members of the Student Trust Committee behind her. At 18, Celeste was the Academy's elected student chair, first in every ranking that mattered, and heir to the Rowan Foundation that owned half the land beneath Kingswell. Students called Adrian the school king because he ruled attention. They called Celeste the campus queen because attention learned to behave when she entered. She wore the dark blue Academy blazer with a silver pin at her collar. In one hand, she carried a narrow black document case. Celeste walked past Adrian, Sophie, and the stunned headmaster. She stopped directly in front of me. Evan Hale, she said, using the clear, formal voice she reserved for votes and disciplinary hearings. Under Clause 7 of the Hale-Rowan Stewardship Trust, I am activating the marriage option. The hall went silent. She opened the case. Inside lay a contract signed 18 years earlier by our grandmothers. I had seen a copy once after my parents died, then dismissed it as another dead family's ambition. Clause 7 allowed either adult heir to trigger a 90-day courtship and joint stewardship review. If both heirs freely confirmed marriage after the review, control of a major scholarship endowment would pass to them together. If the invited heir refused, no marriage could be compelled, but the activating family would gain interim control, and the refusing heir would lose a valuable matching grant tied to the trust. Celeste had the right to activate the option. She did not have the right to accept it for me. You are doing this now? I asked. Yes. In front of the whole school? Clause 7 requires public notice at a trust institution. It does not require your acceptance. Her eyes moved to the page in Sophie's hand. I considered the current institution sufficiently informed. A pulse of laughter traveled through the students, then died when Celeste looked toward it. Adrian stepped beside Sophie. This is an inheritance maneuver, not a proposal. Celeste faced him. Your distinction would be stronger if you had not accepted another man's love letter as evidence of Sophie's sincerity. Sophie's face lost color. Celeste turned back to me and removed a silver ring from the case. It was not a wedding ring. It was the old stewardship seal, engraved with a bridge connecting 2 towers. If you accept the review, she said, you wear this for 90 days. We attend 6 trust sessions, complete independent legal consultations, and make no marriage decision until the final date. You may reject the option now or at any point. And if I reject it now? The Hale Scholarship match ends under the existing instrument. 43 students lose next year's expected support unless another donor replaces it. Pressure entered the proposal through people who had never met us. That sounds like leverage, I said. It is. I did not write the clause. I am activating it before Adrian's family acquires the matching rights through the cross-merger proposal. The larger conflict appeared beneath the romance. Adrian's family wanted control of Kingswell's scholarship system. Sophie had been helping him reach the committee. I had unknowingly helped Sophie reach Adrian. Celeste held out the seal. Why me? I asked. Her expression softened by 1 degree. Because you wrote a sentence about love making a person braver, then allowed someone else to use it while you remained invisible. I am tired of watching you confuse devotion with disappearance. She knew the letter. She knew the clause. She had selected the exact moment when refusing her would look like abandoning 43 students and accepting her would publicly turn my crush's betrayal into a marriage announcement. The campus queen had not rescued me. She had placed a more beautiful form of pressure in my open hand. 12 weeks earlier, I believed Sophie was the only girl at Kingswell who saw me. Kingswell Academy was an elite private school outside Boston where every senior was already 18 and every hallway carried a donor's name. The school accepted wealthy heirs, political families, and a smaller group of scholarship students whose success appeared in brochures. I belonged to a stranger category. My grandmother had helped create the Hale Rowan Scholarship Trust. After my parents died in a highway accident when I was 13, the trust paid my tuition but gave me no social position. I lived with an aunt outside campus, worked in the library archive, and kept my connection to the endowment quiet because I hated people calculating my value through dead relatives. Sophie discovered it during junior year. She found me in the archive repairing a torn scholarship ledger. Her father owned a small chain of bookstores that had nearly collapsed during the pandemic. She attended Kingswell on partial aid and understood the humiliation of smiling for donors. "You are a Hale," she said after seeing my signature on an access form. "Unfortunately, your family built this place. They built a trust. Other people built the place." Sophie leaned against the archive table. Her brown hair fell over one shoulder, and ink marked the side of her thumb. "Why hide it? Because everyone at Kingswell hears family before person. I heard person first." That sentence became the beginning of my crush. For months, Sophie ate lunch in the archive while I worked. She brought damaged books from her father's stores and asked how to preserve them. I helped her prepare scholarship renewals. She told me about overdue rent, her mother's anxiety, and the pressure to become someone powerful enough to rescue the family business. Attention became trust. Trust became private access. I mistook the sequence for mutual romance because I wanted it to be. Sophie never promised me a relationship. She did let her hand remain over mine when I showed her how to mend paper. She leaned against my shoulder during late study sessions. She texted first when she could not sleep. When I asked whether she wanted to attend the winter formal, she said, "Ask me again when we are both less complicated." I treated delay as hope. Adrian entered the story through the Student Scholarship Council. His family operated private schools across the country. At Kingswell, he captained the debate team, chaired the admissions ambassador program, and knew which camera faced him at every event. He was not cruel. He was skilled at making other people feel selected. Sophie wanted that selection. "If Adrian supports my community bookstore proposal, the council can fund it," she told me one afternoon. "Will you help me revise the pitch? The council should judge the idea, not whether he likes you. That is how things should work. I need help with how they do work." I rewrote the proposal. Adrian praised it publicly. Sophie hugged me in the archive afterward. "I could not have done it without you," she said against my shoulder. I held her waist. "Then mention me when they announce it." She stepped back. "You said you wanted to stay out of trust politics. Credit for editing is not politics. Of course I will mention you." She did not. When the council approved the pilot, Sophie thanked Adrian for believing in a student-led vision. My name appeared in small text on an internal draft, and nowhere in the announcement. I told myself the bookstore mattered more than credit. That was my first mistake. Celeste noticed. She came to the archive the morning after the announcement. The student chair did not usually enter basement rooms without an inspection schedule. "The final proposal uses your sentence structure," she said. "Many people use sentences. Your semicolons are aggressive. That is a strange accusation." I compared the document history. "Sophie removed your name before submission." I set down the ledger. "Why were you checking?" "The trust requires attribution for paid student work. She did not pay me. That does not improve the ethics." Celeste stood across the table with both hands behind her back. Her dark hair was pinned at the nape of her neck. She looked composed enough to make affection seem like a governance problem. "Do you want me to correct the record?" she asked. "No." "Why?" "Because Sophie needed the approval. I do not want Adrian thinking she used family connections." "She used you," I offered. "Consent to help one time is not consent to erase authorship." The precision irritated me because it was true. "This is between Sophie and me," I said. Celeste's gaze sharpened. "You believe privacy makes exploitation romantic. You believe policy makes intrusion noble." For the first time, the campus queen smiled at me. "Good," she said. "There's a spine under the archive dust." She left without correcting the credit. That restraint became the first reason I trusted her later. Sophie increased her requests after the bookstore proposal succeeded. She asked which alumni Adrian admired. I knew from archived speeches. She asked which charity gala he would attend. I checked public calendars. She asked for help choosing a book as a thank you gift. I recommended a rare edition from her father's store. Each request had a legitimate purpose. Together, they mapped a courtship. I saw the pattern and kept helping because Sophie continued giving me private closeness. One night, we worked alone in the archive after 9. Snow pressed against the basement windows. Sophie fell asleep with her head on my shoulder. I remained still for 40 minutes because waking her felt like losing access. When she opened her eyes, our faces were close. "Evan," she whispered. I touched the ink mark on her thumb. "Tell me to stop." She did not. I leaned closer. Her phone rang with Adrian's name. Sophie pulled away and answered. "Hi," she said, using a brighter voice. "No, you are not interrupting." I sat beside her while she arranged coffee with him. After the call, she touched my knee. That was about the council. At 10 at night? He is busy during the day. Do you like him? Sophie looked toward the ledger shelves. Everyone likes Adrian. That is not an answer. Would the answer change whether you help me? It should have. No, I said. That was my second mistake. The next morning, Celeste placed a coffee on my archive desk. I did not ask for this, I said. Correct. It is a request for 10 minutes, not a gift requiring gratitude. You can refuse both. You rehearse consent language? My family wrote a marriage option into a scholarship trust. I learned early that legal permission and human permission are different things. That was the first time she mentioned Clause 7 directly. The clause is unenforceable, I said. The marriage is. The financial consequences are not. Then your family built coercion with an exit sign. So did yours. Celeste slid the coffee toward the center of the table without placing it in my space. Adrian's family has proposed merging the cross-education fund with our scholarship trust. If approved, they control investment appointments. What does that have to do with Sophie? Her bookstore pilot is becoming the public argument for the merger. Adrian will present it as evidence that cross-leadership modernizes access. It is a good project. It is your structure, Sophie's story, and Adrian's platform. Only the last name will control the result. I looked at the coffee. Why tell me, Psana? Celeste held my gaze. Because the Hale-matching vote remains dormant while you refuse family status. You have power you pretend not to want, and other people are using the empty chair. I do not want to become my grandmother. Then occupy the chair differently. She left the coffee. I drank it after she was gone. It contained no sugar, exactly how I liked it. That detail felt attentive until I wondered how she knew. Celeste's attention was not yandere in the dramatic sense. She did not follow me, threaten rivals, or hide trackers. She used institutional access, which was quieter and more dangerous. She knew my coffee because the archive purchase account listed it. She knew my schedule because student workers reported hours to her committee. She knew my scholarship connection because her family administered the trust. Do not use governance records to learn personal preferences, I told her the next time she appeared. Celeste accepted the correction immediately. Understood. That easy? A boundary does not become more meaningful because I resist it. You are irritating. You say that when respect would feel too intimate. She was right often enough to become a problem. Over the next month, I attended 2 trust meetings as a non-voting observer. Celeste did not pressure me to use the Hale seat. She sent agendas and asked whether I wanted context. When I declined, she did not create an emergency. Adrian noticed me anyway. After one meeting, he joined me beneath the portraits in Founders Hall. Celeste has decided you are useful, he said. She thinks everyone is useful. No. She thinks most people are predictable. Useful is higher praise. Do you want something? Adrian adjusted one cuff. Sophie says you are helping with the bookstore pilot. I wanted to thank you. Then credit the work. She told me your role was informal. It was. The work still exists. His smile remained. Send me your preferred wording. I did. The next council update listed. Research support provided by Evan Hale, archive assistant. Adrian gave the minimum credit required and made it sound like administrative help. Sophie told me I should be grateful. You asked me to mention you, she said in the archive. Now he did. Research support is not project design. Do you want half ownership of my idea? I want the contribution named accurately. This is why I hesitated to tell you about Adrian. Everything becomes a claim. She touched my arm after saying it, combining accusation with access. I removed her hand. No more editing until we define credit in writing, I said. Sophie stared at the space between us. You are invoicing your friend? I am setting terms for work. Friendship does not mean free ownership. Celeste taught you this. You taught me the need. She left angry. The next day, Adrian invited Sophie to present the pilot at the spring donor dinner. She returned with a written collaboration agreement and my name as editorial advisor. I signed. The boundary produced structure. It did not end my feelings. Sophie became warmer again after I agreed to help. She brought lunch, stayed late, and asked about my parents for the first time in months. One evening, she held my hand across the archive table. I do not want Adrian to change us, she said. What are we? Her thumb moved against mine. Important. That is not a relationship. Why do you need a label now? Because you ask me for boyfriend-level loyalty while pursuing someone else. Sophie released my hand. I am not pursuing him. Then why did you ask me which restaurant he uses for dates? The council meets there. At 8 on Friday? Her silence answered. I like him, she admitted. I also care about you. What do you want from me? Do not make me choose before I know whether Adrian sees me seriously. The honesty was ugly and useful. Then I choose for myself, I said. We remain friends and collaborators under the agreement. No romantic touch, private late nights, or emotional promises while you explore him. Sophie went pale. You are punishing me for not choosing you. I am changing my access because the current arrangement hurts me. Same thing. No. Punishment tries to control your choice. This protects mine. She gathered her papers. Celeste has made you cold. Celeste asked questions. You provided answers. The intimacy ladder between Sophie and me stopped before private access became a secret affair. She responded by escalating status. At the donor dinner, She wore a silver dress and arrived on Adrian's arm. The bookstore presentation used my credited framework, but Adrian answered every donor question. Sophie praised his mentorship. Afterward, photographs showed them on the terrace with his coat around her shoulders. I left before dessert. Celeste found me in the courtyard. You are missing the trust vote, she said. I am an observer. You are also hurt. Do not use committee access to diagnose me. I used my eyes. I sat on the edge of the fountain. Celeste remained standing until I looked up. Do you want company? She asked. For 5 minutes. She sat one arm's length away. Did you know they were arriving together? I asked. Yes. Why not warn me? Because you had set a boundary with Sophie. Warning you would imply her choice required your management. You always have a correct answer. No. I considered arranging my arrival with you to counter their image. That would have used your pain for trust politics. I chose not to ask. The admission made her control visible before action. Would you have wanted that? Celeste asked. Part of me did. Walking in beside the campus queen would have forced Sophie to look at me differently. For revenge, I said. Not for you. Then I am glad I did not offer. Our 5 minutes ended. Celeste stood. The cross-merger passed preliminary review, she said. The final vote is at Founders Night in 6 weeks. Can you stop it? Not without the Hale matching seat or Clause 7. There it is. Information, not a proposal. She walked back inside. I remained by the fountain, thinking about a marriage clause I had spent years mocking. The trust instrument had been created when our grandmothers feared their scholarship mission would be absorbed by larger families. They tied joint stewardship to a possible marriage between future heirs, because they believed family alliance created stable governance. Modern lawyers had narrowed the clause. It could not force marriage, control dating, or override adulthood. It could activate a 90-day review, temporary joint voting rights, and financial consequences attached to matching gifts. The flaw was still obvious. Other student scholarships became leverage inside our romantic decision. I asked for an independent legal consultation. The attorney explained that I could activate the dormant Hale seat without marriage if I accepted personal fiduciary duties and provided a replacement match from other funds. I did not have that money. Celeste's family could provide it only through the clause or a voluntary donation they had declined while the cross-merger remained active. Can Celeste activate without my prior consent? I asked. She can issue public notice. You remain free to reject. Interim effects begin only if you accept the seal. Can the 43 scholarships be protected another way? The trust can seek emergency donors, reduce awards, or challenge the cross-merger. None is guaranteed. The clause was not a magic solution, it was a mechanism with costs. I told Celeste about the consultation. We met in the academy greenhouse because no trust staff worked there. She listened while I described the alternatives. Would you donate the match without Clause 7? I asked. My family board will not authorize it. They believe joint commitment prevents you from walking away after using Rowan funds. And you? I believe money can require governance commitments without requiring romance. I failed to persuade them. Would you marry me for the trust? Celeste's composure changed. That question exceeds information. Answer anyway. She looked through the greenhouse glass at snow along the paths. I have considered marrying you since I was 15, she said. My breath stopped. We had spoken twice. 3 times. You corrected my citation at a debate final. You gave your umbrella to a groundskeeper. You refused to let a donor move a scholarship student's seat for a photograph. That is not enough to know someone. It was enough to become interested. I used records to observe from a distance. I told myself governance required it. Some of that attention crossed ethical lines before you named the boundary. Why never tell me? Because you loved Sophie, and because Clause 7 makes any affection from me feel like pressure. The campus queen's restraint had been built around the same clause she would later activate publicly. Would you marry me? I repeated. Not now. I would activate a 90-day courtship to protect the trust and discover whether the answer could become yes. I would not accept a marriage chosen only by financial pressure. And if I never love you? Then we reject confirmation, document the trust's coercive design, and find another structure. 43 students may lose funding. Pain crossed her face. Yes. That cannot become a chain around your throat. Celeste stepped away from the greenhouse table. I will not activate unless the cross-merger reaches final vote or you ask, she said. Thank you. Do not thank me for not proposing under pressure. She left. Sophie resumed private requests despite our boundary. She sent drafts at midnight and marked them urgent. I returned them unread and referred to the written agreements ours. She waited outside the archive with coffee. I accepted the coffee only after asking whether it required a conversation. She said no, and then followed me for 3 floors. Adrian wants me to transfer the bookstore pilot to the Cross Foundation. She said, that is your decision under the project agreement. My framework cannot be reassigned without credit and license terms. This is not about legal language. It became legal when you wanted to transfer work. He says the Cross Network could put stores in 20 schools. Then negotiate. Sophie caught my sleeve. Come with me. I need you in the meeting. As what? My advisor. Paid and credited? Her hand loosened. You know my family cannot afford your rates. Then ask the Cross Foundation to pay. Adrian will think I cannot handle my own project. You want my work hidden, so he sees your independence. She released my sleeve. You used to help because you cared, she said. I still care. Caring is why I stopped letting resentment finance your success. Sophie left without the meeting's support. 2 days later, she transferred the pilot using a version of my framework with wording changed but structure intact. The written agreement required attribution. Adrian's foundation announcement removed it. This time, I did not stay quiet. I submitted a formal authorship concern to the Scholarship Council with document histories, dates, and the signed agreement. Celeste recused herself because of our trust connection. An independent faculty panel reviewed the material. Sophie called me the moment she received notice. You reported me? I reported the transfer. Adrian will think I am dishonest. Were the terms followed? The idea is mine. The community story and goals are yours. The operational framework is mine. Both can be true. She began crying. My father's stores are failing. This expansion could save them. Then accurate credit does not stop it. It makes me look dependent on you. You were dependent on the work. Hiding the dependence does not create independence. Sophie ended the call. The panel ordered corrected attribution and paused the transfer until license terms were settled. It did not cancel the pilot or punish Sophie beyond the process. Adrian publicly called the pause an administrative misunderstanding. Privately, he removed Sophie from the final merger presentation. She came to the archive furious. You cost me the presentation, she said. Adrian made that choice. Because of your complaint. Because accurate credit complicated the image he wanted. Sophie pushed a folder off the table. Papers spread across the floor. You were supposed to be safe, she said. The sentence revealed my function in her life. Safe meant available, invisible, and unable to impose consequences. I was supposed to be a person, I replied. I did not pick up the papers for her. She left them and walked out. Celeste found me gathering the pages 10 minutes later. You said you would not repair after her, she observed. These are archive documents. Specific distinction accepted. She knelt and asked, May I help? Yes. We collected the papers together. Our hands touched once over a scholarship ledger. Celeste stopped. Continue? She asked. Yes. The simple contact became intimate because she had made stopping normal. Founders' Night approached with the cross-merger still scheduled for final vote. Sophie wrote the love letter 3 days before the event. She came to me claiming a scholarship interview required a personal statement about courage. The project agreement remained active, and the request fell within paid hours. I should have asked to see the prompt. Instead, I saw an opportunity to prove we could still work together professionally. What do you want to say? I asked. That choosing someone publicly is an act of courage. That love should make a person braver, not smaller. The words came from our conflict. I shaped them into a letter. Sophie watched me write. You understand me better than anyone. Understanding is not ownership. I know. She took the page and kissed my cheek before I could step away. That crosses the boundary, I said. It was gratitude. Physical gratitude still requires consent. Sophie looked embarrassed. Sorry. I accepted the apology and failed to inspect the larger lie. On Founders' Night, she read the letter to Adrian. The story caught up to the chandelier, the applause, and my name finally spoken in public after my words had already left me. Then Celeste entered and activated Clause 7. The silence after her announcement lasted only 3 seconds. It was enough time for every phone in Founders Hall to rise. I looked at the silver seal in Celeste's palm, then at the students whose tuition had just been turned into an audience participation question. I will accept the review, I said. The room erupted. Celeste did not smile. Evan, I held up one hand. Under conditions stated now, while everyone is recording, this is not an engagement. It is not consent to marriage. We retain separate counsel. Neither of us will use scholarship recipients as emotional leverage. The review will publish its financial records, and either of us can end the personal courtship without surrendering a vote on the trust. An administrator whispered that the last condition was not in the clause. Then amend it, I said, or I decline, and you explain why 43 students were made collateral for 2 surnames. Celeste's gaze held mine. For the first time that evening, the campus queen looked less like a portrait and more like an 18-year-old standing at the edge of a choice. She closed her fingers around the seal. Agreed. I will sponsor the amendment tomorrow morning. And one more thing. Name it. You don't put that seal on me. I take it if I choose. Celeste extended her open hand. I lifted the seal myself. It was colder and heavier than it looked. I slipped its chain around my wrist rather than wearing it as a ring. Cameras captured the gesture anyway. By midnight, the image would be cropped to resemble a proposal. Adrian recovered first. He stepped forward with the calm concern he used whenever he wanted control to look like protection. This is outrageous, he said. No student should be coerced into romance by a financial instrument. He was right, which made the performance more dangerous. Then vote to remove the coercive part, I said. The cross-partnership would make the entire arrangement unnecessary. Celeste answered before I could. Your partnership transfers scholarship selection to a cross-controlled board and removes the Hale-matching veto after 1 year. The audience shifted. Adrian's smile barely changed. That is an irresponsible interpretation of a technical amendment. I read it, I said. It's exact. Sophie stood beside him, still holding my letter. Her victory had lasted less than 5 minutes. She looked from Adrian to me as if the stage had rotated beneath her feet. Evan, she said softly, you never told me you were part of the trust. I almost laughed. You knew before I did. You found my file. Her face went pale. Adrian glanced at her. Not with affection, with calculation. That was the first moment she understood that the confession had not made her his equal. It had made her useful in public. Celeste turned toward the trustees. The final merger vote is suspended pending the 90-day review. Adrian's gaze sharpened. On whose authority? I raised the seal on my wrist. Ours. The word did not mean Celeste and me as a couple. It meant two dormant voting rights becoming active at once. Still, when her eyes met mine, I felt the dangerous warmth of being understood without having to disappear first. The next morning, Kingswell woke to three competing versions of my life. In the first, I was a rejected nobody rescued by a beautiful heiress. In the second, I was a secret aristocrat who had manipulated Sophie for years. In the third, Celeste had bought herself a husband to protect her family's empire. None mentioned the amendment that could cost 43 students their grants. I posted one statement on the archive page. The Clause 7 review concerns governance and funding. No marriage has been agreed. All personal participation remains voluntary. The relevant documents will be published after independent privacy review. Celeste called within 2 minutes. You posted without my communications team. Correct. They had prepared language. That is why I posted without them. There was a pause. May I tell you why I dislike it? Yes? Because I cannot protect you from interpretations I do not control. You cannot protect me by controlling me. Another pause, longer this time. Understood. I will tell the team they advise both of us only when requested. It was a small answer. It mattered more than a grand apology would have. Our first review meeting took place in a glass conference room overlooking the central courtyard. Celeste arrived with 2 folders, 2 coffees, and no staff. I guessed your order, she said, then caught herself. From public cafeteria purchases, not private records. Still unsettling? A little. She pushed both cups to the center. Then choose. I picked the plain coffee. She took the sweet one and made a face after the first sip. You hate sugar, I said. Today, I respect probability. I laughed before I could stop myself. Celeste watched the sound leave me as if it were a rare bird she was afraid to frighten. We spent 2 hours comparing the cross-proposal with the original trust charter. Beneath the polished promises, Adrian's side had inserted 3 quiet mechanisms. Scholarship applications would be scored by a proprietary system. Appeals would go to an executive committee appointed by Cross. After a 1-year transition, unspent scholarship money could be redirected to campus development. A new athletics center, I said. With his family's name on it, Celeste replied. The system was not designed to steal every scholarship at once. It was designed to make denial impersonal, appeal impossible, and unused money profitable. Why did your trustees support it? Predictability. Cross guarantees annual funding. My board prefers a bad certainty to a difficult responsibility. And you? I prefer responsibility. I am merely accustomed to disguising it as certainty. That was Celeste, honest in sentences sharp enough to cut her too. We created a verification list. Original drafts. Meeting minutes. Scoring model assumptions. Conflict disclosures. Every claim needed 2 sources when possible and a person responsible for checking it. I insisted that scholarship students be interviewed without names or cameras. They are not scenery for our romance, I said. Agreed. Or your campaign. Agreed. Or mine. Celeste's expression softened. Especially yours. The courtship portion of the review required 6 public appearances and 6 private meetings documented only by date and consent. The language was absurdly old, written by people who believed affection could be audited like a bank account. Our lawyers confirmed that we could define a private meeting as any voluntary hour together. Celeste suggested the archive. That sounds suspiciously convenient, I said. I have wanted you alone in the archive for 3 years. I am trying honesty. Heat climbed my neck. That intensity needs a speed limit. Set 1. No surprise touching. No declaring decisions for me. No gathering personal information through your staff. And if I say a meeting is over, it is over. She nodded. My boundary is that you do not use self-erasure as a polite exit. If you are angry, tell me. If you do not want me, tell me. Do not pretend your desires are irrelevant and make me guess. It was the most demanding boundary anyone had ever given me because it required me to exist. Agreed, I said. Our first public appearance was lunch in the ordinary cafeteria, which created such a disturbance that someone dropped an entire tray. Celeste ignored the private dining room and sat across from me beneath fluorescent lights. Students watched her unwrap a sandwich as if she were performing surgery. Do you enjoy this? I asked. The sandwich? No. Their terror? Occasionally? Sitting with you? Yes. You could try sounding normal. I have staff for that. Sophie appeared beside our table carrying her lunch. Can we talk? She asked me. Celeste's shoulders went still. I noticed, because I had begun noticing her restraint, not only her control. You can ask, I said. Sophie looked at Celeste. Alone. Celeste turned to me. Do you want me to leave? The question cost her something. That was why I answered carefully. Give us 10 minutes, please. She rose. I will be by the windows. She walked away without threatening Sophie, claiming me, or arranging an accident. The campus probably found it disappointing. Sophie sat down. Adrian says you and Celeste are using the trust to block improvements everyone wants. Have you read the proposal? He explained it. That wasn't my question. Her fingers tightened around her fork. You never used to interrogate everything I said. You never used to read my love letters to someone else. It wasn't your love letter. You wrote it for me. You asked for an interview statement, because if I had told you, you would have refused. Yes, that is what consent means. She flinched. I said I was sorry. You apologized for kissing my cheek. You haven't apologized for the lie, the letter, or taking public credit again. For a second, anger overcame shame. You gave everything away and then blamed me for taking it. The sentence landed because it contained a truth. I had made generosity into a trap with no visible door. Sophie had exploited it, but I had trained both of us to believe my no would never arrive. You're right about one part, I said. I should have set boundaries years ago. I'm setting them now. Her eyes filled. And Celeste gets the version of you who learned how? This is not a prize distribution. Easy for her. She already has everything. I looked toward the windows. Celeste stood alone while dozens of students pretended not to photograph her. She had wealth, authority, and a loneliness so disciplined it passed for perfection. No, I said. She has different problems. Sophie followed my gaze. She activated a marriage clause in front of the whole school. That isn't romantic. It's insane. Parts of it were coercive. We're changing them. And if you fall for her while you do? I did not answer quickly enough. Sophie's face changed. You already have. I don't know what I feel. You know what you felt for me. Yes. And you used it. She left her lunch untouched and walked away. Celeste returned only after I signaled. Would you like me to ruin her social life? She asked. I stared at her. That was a joke, she said. Mostly. Speed limit. Observed. Would you like me to sit quietly? Yes. She sat with me while the cafeteria noise gradually returned. She did not ask what Sophie had said. She did not fill the silence with solutions. Her knee remained a careful inch from mine. That inch felt more intimate than Sophie's stolen kiss. Adrian launched his campaign 2 days later. He called it, Students Against Contractual Courtship. The slogan was excellent. The hypocrisy was buried under excellent graphic design. He circulated a petition demanding that Clause 7 be abolished, and the cross-merger approved immediately. Most signers never saw that the petition treated those goals as inseparable. When a student reporter asked if his own merger terms threatened scholarships, he called the claim misinformation, spread by legacy interests, afraid of merit. Then, anonymous accounts published photographs of Celeste watching me in the archive, months before the activation. The captions called her a stalker. Some details were exaggerated. Others were uncomfortably accurate. I confronted her in the greenhouse. Did you have me followed? Celeste went completely still. No. Did your staff record where I went? Security logs record every heir with dormant trust authority. I read yours. I stopped after you objected. Did you save photographs? 1. From the academic awards ceremony last year. It was a public photograph. You were in the background. Why save it? Her composure cracked at the edges. Because you were smiling at someone else, and I wanted to understand what made you look free. The answer was neither harmless nor monstrous. It was a lonely girl's obsession fed by institutional access. Delete it, I said. Pain flashed across her face. All right. She took out her phone, found the image, and held it where I could see. Her thumb hovered. I am not asking for a performance. I know. She deleted it anyway. You should not have to compete with a version of yourself I collected without permission. The pressure in my chest loosened. Thank you. Are you ending the courtship? Do you want me to? No. Her answer came instantly. I want to lock the greenhouse door, cancel your meetings, and keep you here until every rumor dies. I will do none of those things. What do you want? There it was, the frightening desire, and beside it, agency. I want the truth about the leak. Then I want dinner somewhere nobody cares about our surnames. Celeste exhaled. That sounds dangerously like a date. It is a date if you accept. I accept. Our investigation found that the photographs had been requested from the student media archive using Sophie's credentials. I wanted the answer to be simple. It was not. Sophie met us in an empty classroom and admitted she had downloaded them. Adrian had asked for evidence that Celeste planned the activation in advance. He said it would protect Evan from coercion. Sophie had believed him until the anonymous posts began attacking my parents, suggesting they had hidden trust money before their deaths. I didn't send those captions, she said. I gave him the files, knowing he planned to use them publicly? I asked. I thought he would ask questions, not start a mob. Celeste's voice was cold. You supplied ammunition and objected to the target selection. Sophie turned on her. At least I didn't trigger a financial threat to make him date me. Enough, I said. Both stopped. It was strange how quickly the room obeyed once I stopped speaking like a guest in my own life. Celeste, that is a fair criticism even if Sophie acted wrongly. Sophie, Adrian's purpose does not erase your choice. You accessed restricted records. You will report the breach with me today. I'll be expelled. Probably not. But there will be consequences. You do that to me? No. You did it. I am refusing to hide it. Sophie began to cry. I did not rush across the room to rescue her from the feeling. Celeste did not look triumphant. She placed a box of tissues on the nearest desk and stepped back. That small mercy made Sophie cry harder. The school suspended Sophie's archive access and removed her from student media projects pending review. She kept her classes and aid. Adrian publicly denied asking her to retrieve anything. Privately, he stopped answering her messages. 3 days later, she sent me screenshots. Adrian's instructions were careful but clear. Pull all public media containing Celeste and Evan. Use your access before they revoke it. This can prove he needs saving. Another message promised Sophie a place beside him when the merger passed. The final message, sent after the leak, read, "You acted independently. Do not contact me about this again." Sophie had chased the school king and discovered that a throne was mostly distance. The screenshots helped prove Adrian's involvement, but they did not prove the merger fraud. For that, we needed the scoring model. The Cross Foundation refused to provide it, citing trade secrets. Celeste proposed an injunction through the trust. "It will take months," I said. "Then we freeze the vote for months. And the matching grant expires in 6 weeks. Her jaw tightened. "We can extend it if we confirm the marriage." The sentence hung between us. Clause 7's oldest poison remained. Marriage would renew the Hale-Rowan commitment automatically for 5 years. Reform required a supermajority. Without either, the money stopped. "Are you asking me?" I said. "No. Are you thinking it?" Celeste looked directly at me. "Every hour." "That is not the same as saying no." "Then hear it clearly. I will not ask you to marry me while another person's tuition is attached to your answer. If the grants fail, I will sell assets in my own name before I use their fear to obtain you." Her voice shook only once, on the word you. "The board could block a personal transfer. They can try." "You would burn your inheritance?" "Parts of it. I dislike most of the furniture." I laughed. And then I realized she was completely serious. "Don't destroy your future to prove you won't control mine." "Then help me build a third option." We spent the night in the archive. Not romantically. At least, not at first. We traced 20 years of trust disbursements, looking for powers the current board had forgotten. Near 2 a.m, I found a provision allowing a provisional student aid cooperative to receive emergency funds if both stewardship heirs certified an institutional conflict. "It only lasts 1 academic year," I said. "Long enough to reform the charter. The board can challenge the conflict certification." "They will. We need evidence beyond the merger draft." The scoring model. We sat on the floor between shelves, exhausted and trapped in the same circle. Celeste leaned her head against the cabinet behind her. "May I tell you something selfish?" "Yes. I am glad you did not love me first." I blinked. "That is selfish. If you had loved me the way you loved Sophie, I might have accepted everything you offered and called it devotion. I would have become very good at taking." "You are already frighteningly good at taking." "I know. You make me practice asking." The silver seal rested against my wrist. Celeste looked at it, then away. "May I hold your hand?" she asked. "Yes." Her fingers slid between mine. There were no cameras, no trustees, no clause requirement for hand-holding. The contact belonged only to the question and my answer. I turned my hand and held hers back. "Celeste." "Yes? May I kiss you?" Her polished composure vanished. "Yes," she whispered. Then with desperate precision. "Once. Slowly. Stop if either of us moves away." I kissed her. She tasted faintly of bad cafeteria coffee. Her free hand clenched against her own knee rather than pulling me closer. I felt the effort in that restraint, and deepened the kiss only because I chose to. When we separated, her eyes remained closed for one breath. "That was not evidence for the review," I said. "I will commit perjury on that point." "No crimes. You ruin everything," she smiled when she said it. The kiss changed nothing in the trust documents and everything in the space between us. Celeste did not announce it. She did not use it to win an argument. The next morning, when we met in public, she asked before sitting close enough for our shoulders to touch. That care made wanting her more dangerous, not less. Adrian noticed. At the next student forum, he abandoned the language of rescue and accused me of conspiring with Celeste from the beginning. "Mr. Hale presents himself as an exploited scholarship advocate," he said from the auditorium stage, "but he concealed his inheritance, manipulated a vulnerable classmate's feelings, and now benefits from an arranged alliance." I sat opposite him beneath the bright debate lights. Celeste watched from the front row but had agreed not to answer for me. "Which feeling did I manipulate?" I asked. Adrian spread his hands. "Sophie believed you were her friend. I was. I also loved her. She knew. She used work obtained under false pretenses to confess to you. Did you know the letter was mine when you accepted it?" His eyes shifted by a fraction. "This forum is about the trust. You introduced Sophie." Answer. "I recognized your style afterward. And still let the school believe she wrote it. I was protecting her from humiliation." From the aisle, Sophie stood. No one had expected her to attend. Her face was pale, but her voice carried. "He knew before," she said. Adrian looked at her for the first time that day. "Sophie, this isn't helpful." He asked me if Evan had written it while we were still backstage. I said yes. "He told me not to ruin a perfect moment with technicalities," the audience murmured. Adrian lowered his microphone. "We can discuss this privately." "That's what you always say when the truth is inconvenient in public." She faced the student body. "I lied to Evan. I used his feelings, his research, and his words because I thought being chosen by Adrian would prove I belonged here. Evan did not manipulate me. He made it easy for me to take from him, but I chose to take. I also accessed archive photographs for Adrian. I am cooperating with the disciplinary review. It was not redemption. It was accountability without a guarantee of forgiveness." Adrian tried to return to the merger, but the rhythm of the room had broken. For the first time, people heard his concern as strategy. I presented the 3 control mechanisms in the cross proposal. I showed the signature page and the hidden amendment. I did not claim the scoring model discriminated because we could not yet prove it. What we can prove, I said, is that Adrian's family wants the power to deny aid without disclosing how, hear appeals against itself, and spend whatever remains. If the model is fair, let an independent auditor test it. Adrian smiled. You are demanding that a private foundation surrender intellectual property because you are suspicious. No, I am saying it should not control public-facing student aid if it cannot tolerate oversight. The applause began in the back rows and moved forward. Celeste did not stand. She pressed 2 fingers to her wrist, our private signal for pride without possession. After the forum, Adrian cornered me on the bridge connecting the library to Founders Hall. Without an audience, the school king looked tired. You think you won, he said. I think people asked better questions. My family can fund this place for 50 years. Your trust is 6 weeks from collapse. Then allow the audit. You don't understand what organizations require. Predictability. Hierarchy. Someone willing to decide. You mean someone no one can question. I mean someone who does not spend all night asking permission to hold a girl's hand. Anger flashed hot and clean. Who told you that? His smile returned. Only 3 people knew about our night in the archive. Celeste, me, and whoever had listened through the room's old intercom. The archive intercom connected to student security. Adrian chaired the student safety committee. I stepped closer. You listen to us. Prove it. I will. Before the grant expires? He walked away with his crown intact and his fear finally visible. The security system retained access logs for 30 days. The administrator responsible for them told us a maintenance error had erased the relevant night. Celeste wanted to suspend Adrian immediately. On inference? I asked. On risk. That is how his scoring model works. Her mouth closed. It was unfair and accurate. She sat back from the conference table. Then what do you suggest? Find the cause of the deletion. Preserve everything else. Interview the person who processed it. And let him keep access? Temporarily restrict all committee access under a neutral policy, including yours and mine. She hated it. Then she signed the restriction first. The deletion request had been printed, not submitted digitally. The signature looked like the maintenance administrator's, but the archive copy machine embedded tiny tracking dots in every page. The serial pattern matched a machine in the student council office. That still did not identify who pressed print. Sophie supplied the next link. Adrian had asked her to reserve the council office on the relevant evening for a private celebration. She had waited there for an hour. He never came. Her reservation put her credentials on the door while giving him a reason to know the room would be empty. He planned to put this on me too, she said. Maybe, I replied. We prove what happened, not what feels likely. The phrase sounded like Celeste now. Or perhaps like the person I had become beside her. The hallway camera showed Adrian entering the office carrying a folder. It did not show the printer. The student conduct panel deemed the evidence sufficient to suspend his security access pending a full inquiry, but not to establish eavesdropping. Adrian responded by accelerating the financial clock. Cross Foundation withdrew its bridge funding offer unless the merger was approved within 10 days. Trustees panicked. Parents called. Scholarship students received automated notices warning that future disbursements were under review. The notices were unauthorized. They came from a third-party portal operated by Cross. 43 students woke to an email telling them their education might end because Celeste and I had refused a sustainable partnership. The message included a link to Adrian's petition. That was the moment the conflict stopped being elegant. One student did not come to class. Another listed her textbooks for sale. A third asked the housing office how quickly he would need to leave campus. I found Sophie in the archive printing emergency aid forms by hand because her access to the database had been revoked. I can leave, she said. Keep printing. We spent the morning helping students submit hold requests while Celeste fought the portal provider. She arrived at noon without her jacket, hair coming loose, fury stripped of polish. I can restore the notices, she said. I cannot guarantee the funds after 6 weeks. The cooperative provision can. Only if we certify a conflict and deposit 12 months of reserves. We have 6. Sophie looked between us. The bookstore coalition. I had forgotten her original project. 5 family-owned bookstores had offered matching community funds if Kingswell created paid literacy placements. Adrian had cut that section from the merger showcase because the amount looked small beside cross money. How much? I asked. Not enough, Sophie said. But they know alumni. They know every family that bought a first book from them. If the trust matches community pledges, instead of waiting for one giant donor. Distributed funding, I said. Celeste understood immediately. Harder to control, harder to withdraw all at once. Sophie gave a bitter laugh. Turns out small people are useful when you stop treating them like decoration. The comments struck all 3 of us. We built the emergency campaign in 48 hours. No romantic photographs. No tragic student profiles without permission. Every pledge page showed the exact reserve gap and the governance proposal that would follow. Celeste contributed personal funds but capped her public share at 10% so the campaign could not become another monument to a surname. I assigned my future hail distributions to the cooperative under the same cap. Sophie contacted the bookstores and recorded a video in which she explained both the literacy program and her own misconduct. I told her the confession was not required for fundraising. I know, she said. I'm tired of editing myself into the brave person after someone else writes the words. She wrote her script alone. It was less polished than mine would have been. It was hers. The first day raised 12% of the gap. Adrian called it sentimental economics. The second day reached 31%. On the third morning, an alumni group offered to cover the remainder if Celeste and I confirmed our intent to marry. The condition was presented as tradition. It was still a purchase offer. Celeste rejected it before telling me. When I learned, I was furious. You made the decision for both of us. I knew you would refuse. That is Sophie's sentence. Celeste recoiled as if I had struck her. I was protecting your choice by taking it away. We stood in the greenhouse where I had first demanded she delete the photograph. Rain rattled the glass roof. Would you have accepted? She asked. No. Then the outcome is the same. Agency is not an outcome. Her face hardened. While you enjoy the purity of process, students are packing their rooms. I removed a coercive offer before it could reach you, and taught the donors they can negotiate my life through you. What do you want me to say? That I am sorry I would rather lose money than watch you consider selling yourself. I want you to say you still don't trust me to choose. Silence filled the greenhouse. Celeste looked at me with love sharpened into fear. I trust you to choose, she said. I do not trust the world to leave you unpunished for it. Neither do I. It is still my choice. I removed the silver seal from my wrist and set it on the table between us. Her breath caught. I'm pausing the personal courtship, I said. We continue the governance review as equals. No public romance, no private dates, until you can separate protecting me from deciding for me. How long? I don't know. Every possessive instinct crossed her face. Lock the door. Take the seal. Demand certainty. Instead, she stepped away from the table. I accept the boundary. I left the greenhouse alone. The next week hurt more than Sophie's betrayal had. Sophie had taken words from a love I already understood was unreturned. With Celeste, I had found something mutual and chosen to interrupt it because mutual desire did not excuse control. We remained professional. Celeste sent agendas, not coffee. She never arrived uninvited. When meetings ended, she did not search my face for permission to stay. I missed her terrifying attention. Missing it did not make the boundary wrong. The campaign stalled at 58%. The cross deadline was 4 days away. Before it stalled, there had been one evening when the numbers rose fast enough for all of us to pretend the crisis might be simple. It was the dinner I had asked Celeste for before the leak investigation consumed us. We chose a 24-hour diner beyond the stone gates, where the menus were laminated and nobody knew enough about Kingswell to bow. Celeste arrived in a black town car, saw my expression, and sent it away. I can walk back, she said. It's 6 miles. Then I will discover character. Keep the car. Just ask it not to wait directly outside like a kidnapping team. She made the request. The car moved to a public parking lot. Inside, Celeste studied the menu with the concentration she usually reserved for contracts. Have you never been to a diner? I asked. I have attended catered events designed to resemble one. That sentence should be illegal. She ordered pancakes at 8 in the evening because she had been told she could. I ordered a burger, then changed to pancakes too when hers arrived and looked better. You are allowed to want what I have, she said. That sounds like a trap. I meant the food, mostly. Without uniforms and school titles, we had to find ordinary questions. Favorite films, bad habits, the most embarrassing songs on our phones. Celeste liked old courtroom dramas because every conflict ended after orderly argument. I liked disaster movies because no one could pretend the situation was under control. Your turn, I said. Worst habit. Researching people before meeting them. We established that. I also reorganize other people's desks when anxious. You touched my archive desk? Once. I moved a pencil 3 inches and suffered remorse. Monster. Your worst habit? Saying I'm fine until I resent everyone for believing me. Her teasing expression vanished. That is not charming. I know. How will I know? Ask once. If I say I'm fine, believe me. If I'm lying, the consequence belongs to me. That feels intolerably inefficient. It keeps you from interrogating me until I produce the answer you fear. Celeste cut her pancake into precise squares. I can do that. Can you? I can fail, admit it, and try again. It was not the perfect promise. It was better. A group from Kingswell entered near dessert. They recognized us instantly. Phones appeared. One student called, "Show us the ring." Celeste looked at me. Leave? No. I lifted my wrist, showing the seal hanging from its chain rather than worn on a finger. It isn't a ring, I said. And this is dinner, not a trust event. The student lowered her phone, embarrassed. Celeste's hand rested on the table, close to mine. She did not reach farther. I turned my palm upward. She placed hers in it. The photograph still spread online, but it showed a question if anyone looked carefully enough. An open hand answered by another. Sophie saw it. The following day, she waited outside the archive with a cardboard box containing every notebook, draft, and flash drive connected to our old work. I'm returning your words, she said. Some of those are yours. I don't know which anymore. We carried the box to a review table and sorted it together under the terms of the disciplinary process. My research notes went into one pile, her original interviews went into another. Collaborative drafts stayed in the center until we could mark contributions. The task was tedious. That was important. Betrayal wanted a single theatrical apology. Repair required page numbers. On one early bookstore draft, Sophie had written the opening by herself. I had crossed out half the paragraph and replaced it with cleaner language. Put the original back, I said. It was bad. It was yours. We can mark my revision separately. She stared at the page. You always did that. Did what? Made things better before anyone else could see I had made them. I started believing the better version was also mine. I liked being needed. I liked needing you more than respecting you. Neither confession canceled the other. She told me about her family's bookstores. The accounts were worse than she had admitted. Her parents expected the Kingswell project to attract investors. Adrian's merger showcase had looked like the only stage large enough to save them. That is why I chased him, she said. Not only because he was handsome or powerful. If he chose the project, people would notice. If he chose me, they might keep noticing. Why didn't you tell me? Because you would have helped. That makes no sense. You would have helped quietly, patiently. And if it failed, I would still be the girl with a dying store and a boy who loved her. Adrian made failure feel impossible. He made consequences look like things that happened to other people. Yes, I understood without excusing her. Desperation explained the door she chose. It did not make me responsible for being pushed through it. Your family's situation should be disclosed to the project reviewers, I said. Not as an excuse, as a conflict. Will you come when I tell them? The request woke an old reflex. Of course, I will stand beside you. I will find the right words. I let the reflex pass. No, I said. You need to tell them without using me as evidence that you're good. Her lips trembled. Okay. She did it alone that afternoon. The reviewers allowed the bookstore coalition to continue but removed Sophie's family business from control of the funds. It could receive a placement contract only through the same disclosed bidding process as the others. Sophie accepted the condition. That night, Celeste asked whether I still loved her. We were in the greenhouse reviewing community pledges. Her question came so abruptly that I almost dropped the ledger. Sophie? Yes. Part of me probably will for a while. Celeste went rigid. Do you want the honest answer, or the reassuring one? I asked. I want to become the kind of person who can survive the honest one. Then I still grieve what I thought we might be. I don't want to date her. I don't trust her. And my feelings for you are not a replacement prize. Would you go back if she became trustworthy? I don't know who either of us will be years from now. Today? No. Today? Celeste repeated, displeased by the size of time. Today is the only answer I can consent to. She paced once between the planters. I want to demand forever. I know. I want to make her transfer. You won't. I will not. I want credit for that. You get moderate credit. She stopped in front of me. And if I say I love you? My heart struck hard enough to hurt. I would say it matters. I wouldn't say it back yet. The pain in her face was immediate. She did not hide it behind anger. Thank you for not lying, she said. Do you still want to say it? Yes. Then say it because it is yours, not because it buys an answer. Celeste took a breath. I love you. I dislike that you can leave. I dislike that you have loved someone else. I dislike every future version of you I cannot predict. I will not punish you for any of those facts. I stepped close enough to feel the heat of her body. May I hold you? Yes. I held her while she endured the vulnerability of an unanswered declaration. After a moment, I whispered, I'm falling in love with you. I want to finish falling without being pushed. Her arms tightened. That is not yes, she said. No. It is not no. Correct. I can work with terrifying uncertainty. You can live with it. You don't get to work it into a result. She made an offended sound against my shoulder. The following morning, Adrian asked Sophie to meet him on the athletic bleachers. She recorded the conversation only after he agreed, because the conduct panel had instructed both of them to document contact. His voice on the recording was smooth at first. He said they had both made mistakes. He said the school had turned private affection into politics. He offered to restore her place in the merger campaign if she stated that Celeste had manipulated the archive leak. She didn't, Sophie said. She manipulated Evan. You saw it. You told me he needed saving, so I would get the photographs. Then you left me alone when it went wrong. I was advised not to contact a witness. You're contacting me now. The recording went silent for several seconds. Then Adrian's tone changed. Your parents' stores need the partnership. Without the cross showcase, they will close by winter. Celeste will protect Evan's trust. She will not protect you. Is that a threat? It is reality. Adults make choices based on it. Sophie answered, then I choose not to lie for you. When she submitted the recording, Adrian's representatives argued that he had only described market conditions. The panel did not sanction him for the statement. But the audio circulated after both sides introduced it into the public hearing record. Students heard the distance between Adrian's public romance and his private arithmetic. Sophie lost followers. Then she gained a different kind of attention. Messages from people who wanted her to expose him, destroy him, date someone else publicly, or turn remorse into a brand. She deleted her social accounts instead. Do you know how quiet it is? She asked me in the archive. Good quiet? Terrifying quiet. I keep waiting for someone to tell me what version of myself is winning. What do you want to do? She looked at the piles of drafts. Finish sorting these. Then go home and help my father close the register. That sounds real. Real is smaller than I expected. Sometimes that is how it fits in your hands. We returned to work. Meanwhile, the scholarship notices produced consequences no campaign chart could hold. I interviewed recipients anonymously, as promised. One had already postponed a medical appointment to save money. Another had not told his mother, because she would sell the equipment from her catering business. A third kept asking whether accepting emergency aid would make her a public supporter of my relationship with Celeste. No, I told her. You never owe us approval. She studied me. Then why did the trust make your dating life my problem? There was no defense. Because people with power wrote a cruel rule and called it tradition. I agreed to enter the review, because I thought I could protect the grants faster from inside it. That still made you carry uncertainty you did not choose. I'm sorry. Are you going to marry her? I don't know. Not because of the grants. Make sure she knows the difference. Students had begun giving me advice. It was an improvement. That interview ended the last part of me that wanted to preserve Clause 7 in a gentler form. A voluntary courtship could be pleasant for Celeste and me. Tied to governance, it would always conscript an audience. I drafted the abolition motion that night. Celeste read it without arguing. She added a sentence preserving independent stewardship votes regardless of marriage, divorce, or romantic status. If we ever break up, she said, her voice very controlled, you keep your authority. Yes, I hate this sentence. That is why it belongs in the charter. She signed beneath it. The next campaign update included the proposed abolition. Donations briefly slowed. Some alumni had given because they liked the spectacle of an old-fashioned alliance. Others increased their pledges once they understood we intended to end it. At 58%, the easy enthusiasm disappeared. That was when support became a measure of structure instead of novelty. Then an anonymous file appeared in my archive inbox. It contained a partial export from the cross-scoring system. Variable names, test applicants, and outcome weights. Family donation history increased an applicant's score. Need above a hidden threshold decreased it. Students from schools with low historical completion rates were penalized even when their individual grades were high. It was exactly what we feared and legally dangerous to use. Celeste wanted to publish. I wanted to verify. Sophie recognized one test profile. Adrian had shown it to her while boasting that the new system could identify risk before sentiment interfered. She could testify, but the file's origin remained unknown. If we published stolen data, Adrian would bury the discrimination under a privacy scandal. We searched the merger's due diligence index and found a reference to an external fairness assessment. The assessment itself was missing. Cross claimed it had never been completed. The vendor listed on the index had dissolved, but its records had been transferred to a professional archive. As a beneficiary trust facing acquisition, we had a right to request the report. It arrived 19 hours before the deadline. The official assessment matched the anonymous export. Cross executives had been warned that the model disadvantaged high-need applicants and recommended removing donation history. A response memo approved by Adrian as junior foundation representative rejected the change because it would reduce strategic family alignment. His signature was at the bottom. We had the first major answer. Adrian was not merely defending his family's plan. He had personally protected the mechanism that converted wealth into merit. The larger problem remained. Exposing him would not fill the reserve. Celeste asked for a private meeting in the archive. The request arrived through the same calendar system as every other review event. I accepted. She stood on the other side of the long table. The seal remained where I had left it, locked in a clear evidence box for the governance record. I contacted the alumni donors, she said. My chest tightened. I told them their marriage condition was unacceptable and invited them to make an unconditional pledge. I also disclosed that I rejected the offer without consulting you and that the personal courtship is paused because of it. You told them that? Yes. They were scandalized by the honesty. 2 withdrew. 3 converted their shares to unconditional pledges. How much? 8% of the gap, not salvation. Repair rarely arrived as salvation. Why tell me now? Because the action affects our joint work. I am not asking for the courtship to resume. I studied her. What would you do differently if another offer came? Bring it to you. State my opinion once, help you examine consequences. Then accept your decision, including a decision that frightens me. And if I offered to marry you tomorrow to save the grants? Her eyes shone, but her voice stayed steady. I would ask whether you would make the same offer if every grant were already safe. If the answer were no or uncertain, I would refuse. Even if you wanted to say yes? Especially then. I walked around the table. The courtship is still paused, I said. Understood. But may I hug you? Celeste swallowed. Yes, I held her. Her arms came around me carefully, then fiercely when I tightened mine. She pressed her face against my shoulder and took one broken breath. I hate moderation, she whispered. I know. I am practicing. I know. We released each other before wanting became a new argument. The final trust hearing filled Founders Hall more completely than Sophie's confession had. On the morning of the hearing, I found the original love letter in my locker. Sophie had placed it inside a clear archival sleeve. A note on the back said, "This belongs to you. The parts I asked for do not make the lie mine to keep." I read the letter once. The language still sounded beautiful. That surprised me. I had expected betrayal to rot every sentence. Instead, the words remained evidence of something I had been capable of giving: attention, tenderness, hope. Sophie had misused them, but she had not created or destroyed their source. Celeste found me at the archive desk with the page beneath my hands. She stopped in the doorway. Under the pause, every jealous instinct was visible. "May I come in?" she asked. "Yes." She approached but did not read over my shoulder. "The letter? The original. Do you want privacy?" I considered it. "No. I want to tell you what it says." I summarized the promises I had written for Sophie. That love should make a person braver. That being seen by the right person could turn humiliation into courage. That I would stand in public and choose her. Celeste listened without mocking the sentiment or asking whether I meant it now. "It was a good letter," I said. "Of course it was. Adrian would not have accepted a mediocre theft." I smiled. "Jealous?" "Violently. Within legal limits. I'm not going to destroy it." Her mouth tightened. "It is yours. I'm donating it to the authorship record after Sophie's disciplinary file closes. With her permission, because her request shaped it. The archive will show the draft history and what happened. You want strangers to read it? Future students should understand that invisible work is still work." Celeste looked at the sleeve for a long moment. "Then preserve it." "That answer cost you." "Everything involving your romantic history costs me. I am developing a budget. No strategic acquisitions." Cruel. We stood close without touching, the courtship pause still active. "Are you afraid of the hearing?" she asked. "Yes. If we lose the merger vote, Cross can punish the school. If we accept it, the model punishes students quietly. If the cooperative fails, people blame us. They may blame us even if it succeeds." "I know. Are you fine?" The old answer rose automatically. I let it go. "No. I need 5 minutes where nobody expects me to solve anything." Celeste checked the clock. "May I sit here for those 5 minutes without speaking?" "Yes." We sat on opposite sides of the desk. The love letter lay between us, not as a rival or a weapon, only as a record of who I had been. After 5 minutes, Celeste stood. "Time," she said. "Thank you." I did almost nothing. Exactly what I asked. Her expression softened. At the door, she looked back. "For what it is worth, you did stand in public and choose someone." "Who?" "Yourself." Repeatedly. "It has been extremely inconvenient for everyone." Then she left for the hearing, and I followed when I was ready. This time, no one had come for a love letter. They came because Cross had threatened to withdraw its money at midnight, and because 43 students had learned exactly how quickly powerful people could turn their futures into leverage. Adrian sat with the trustees at the front. His security access was suspended, but his family still controlled the largest funding offer on the table. Celeste and I sat apart by mutual agreement. The empty chair between us became its own statement. The presiding trustee began with the Cross deadline. "Before we discuss allegations," he said, "we must confront fiscal reality. The Cross Foundation offer expires in 3 hours. The community cooperative remains underfunded. By 26%, I said. An irresponsible gap, a transparent one." Adrian leaned toward his microphone. "Transparency does not pay tuition. Neither does a promise you can withdraw whenever students question you." The trustees struck the table for order. We presented the fairness assessment in sequence. First, the due diligence index proving the report existed. Then the archive certification establishing provenance. Then the model findings. Finally, Adrian's signed response memo. No dramatic anonymous file. No claim we could not support. Adrian read his own sentence on the projection screen. Removing donation history would reduce strategic family alignment. "This was a preliminary discussion," he said. "No final model was adopted." Celeste spoke from her separate seat. "The merger agreement gives Cross sole discretion to adopt it after approval. Discretion is not intent. I displayed the version history. You rejected the correction and removed the requirement for an independent audit in the same week. I was 17. So, were many applicants the model would reject." His control slipped. "You think a few months reading old ledgers makes you capable of managing an endowment? You couldn't tell your best friend you loved her without writing speeches she used on someone else." The attack was cruel enough to create silence. Months earlier, I would have shrunk inside it. Now, I looked at Sophie in the audience. She did not look away. "I told her," I said. "She did not choose me. That hurt. Then she used me. That was wrong. Both can be true. My humiliation does not make your model fair." The silence shifted toward attention. "You keep turning relationships into proof of competence." I continued. "Sophie thought being chosen by you would prove she belonged. Celeste thought controlling every risk would prove she could protect what she loved. I thought being endlessly useful would prove I deserved affection. We were all wrong. A person is not qualified because someone powerful selects them. And a student is not worthy because an algorithm finds their family strategically aligned." Sophie lowered her face and began to cry quietly. Celeste's hand closed around nothing on the table, respecting the distance I had asked for. Adrian sat back. "A moving speech. The funding gap remains." "Yes," I said. "Which is why the cooperative proposal includes automatic spending cuts to ceremonial budgets, paid executive retreats, and naming rights marketing before a single scholarship dollar is reduced." Several trustees looked personally offended. I projected the figures. Kingswell spent more each year entertaining major donors than the remaining reserve gap. The trustees called those events investments. We calculated their 5-year return after deducting catering, travel, gifts, and staff hours. The result was embarrassingly small. Canceling Founders Week next year covers 6%, I said. Suspending trustee retreats covers 4. Redirecting the merger consultancy fee covers 7. The remaining 9 can be bridged by a capped emergency note repaid from unrestricted alumni gifts. You would dismantle our donor culture, one trustee said. Temporarily. Students have already been asked to dismantle their lives. Celeste presented signed waivers from 2 trustees willing to forego stipends. Sophie presented bookstore coalition pledges. I presented the Student Aid Cooperative Charter with privacy safeguards and independent appeals. The gap was no longer a cliff. It was a series of choices. Adrian made his final move. Cross will withdraw all current partnership support if this board rejects the merger, he said. The room erupted. That support included athletics, technology subscriptions, and 3 faculty chairs. He had transformed a deadline into open retaliation. His father had not signed the threat. Adrian had. The school king had spent years learning that authority meant making refusal expensive. Cornered, he revealed the lesson completely. The presiding trustee called a recess. Students flooded the aisles. Reporters surrounded Adrian. Celeste remained in her seat, eyes fixed on the seal displayed in its clear box beside the original charter. I approached her. Are you all right? I asked. No, I want to use Clause 7 exactly as written. If we confirmed an engagement and intent to marry, the trust would automatically renew. We could avoid the emergency cuts. The pressure was at its highest, which made consent least reliable. What will you do? She turned to me. Vote to abolish it. Even if the cooperative fails? Fear moved through her eyes. Yes. That was when I knew the difference between Celeste wanting me and Celeste choosing to love me. Wanting had reached for a mechanism. Love removed it even when removal might cost her everything. After the hearing, I said, I want to talk about us. Her breathing stopped for a beat. That is cruelly vague. I learned from the Queen. Former Queen, if this vote goes badly. Good. I never liked the title. The trustees returned. The first vote rejected the cross-merger pending a full independent investigation. It passed by 1 vote. Adrian's father sent a message during the count withdrawing the threat his son had issued. It was not mercy. Cross-executives understood that retaliating against students hours after a discrimination report became public would destroy more value than the merger created. Adrian stared at his phone. For the first time since I had known him, someone more powerful had made him publicly small. I felt no triumph, only recognition. Humiliation had not taught me justice by itself. I would not pretend it could teach him. The second vote activated the emergency cooperative and the budget bridge. It passed easily once the cross threat disappeared. The 43 grants were secured for the academic year. Students in the gallery began to applaud. Some screamed. One of them collapsed against a friend in relief. The third vote addressed Clause 7. Celeste rose. My family preserved this clause because they called it continuity, she said. In practice, it attached public welfare to private intimacy. I used that design. I believed the urgency of the threat justified placing Evan under pressure in public. It did not. His conditions reduced the harm, but they do not erase my choice. I moved to abolish the courtship and marriage provisions entirely, preserve the heir's separate governance rights, and prohibit any trust benefit from depending on romantic status. Every camera turned toward me. I stood. I seconded the motion. The presiding trustee frowned. You understand that abolition ends the automatic 5-year renewal, including any benefit you might claim through marriage? Yes. And that you cannot restore it later for personal convenience? Celeste answered. That is the point. The vote required a supermajority. 2 trustees opposed. 1 abstained. The final count passed by the narrowest possible margin. An old secretary opened the clear evidence box and removed the silver seal. This instrument has no further legal effect, she announced. She set it on the charter. The metal looked suddenly ordinary. Across the aisle, Celeste smiled through tears she made no attempt to hide. The conduct proceedings took another month. Evidence from the security logs, the printed deletion request, and Adrian's messages established that he had directed Sophie to access archive material and had attempted to conceal his own use of restricted systems. Investigators could not prove he listened to our entire private conversation, but he admitted hearing part of it after being confronted with access records from the intercom controller. He lost his student council offices, security privileges, and role in foundation negotiations. Kingswell required him to complete the year under a conduct contract rather than expelling him, partly because the adults who had handed him authority were not allowed to pretend he invented the culture alone. His family removed him from public foundation work. The school stopped calling him the school king. Most students stopped calling him anything. Sophie received academic probation for misuse of archive credentials and lost leadership of the literacy initiative. The project continued under the bookstore coalition with paid student contributors and clear attribution rules. Her own aid remained protected because punishment was not supposed to become economic execution. She apologized to me twice. The first was public, required by the panel. She named the letter, the project credit, the photographs, and the years of treating my availability as permission. The second happened privately on the library bridge. I did love you, she said. The old version of me would have accepted the sentence as everything I had wanted. In what way? I asked. She looked out through the glass at the courtyard. Like home? Like someone who would always open the door. I didn't understand that I only visited when I needed shelter. That isn't the love I wanted. I know now. Do you love Adrian? She laughed once without humor. I loved what being beside him seemed to say about me. Then I hated him for believing the same thing. What happens next? I learned to write badly on my own. I work at the bookstore. I stop auditioning for people. That sounds difficult. You used to offer to help when I said that. I know. She nodded, accepting the absence of an offer. Will we ever be friends again? I considered the question honestly. Not the way we were. Maybe one day we can know each other without debt. I can't promise it. Tears filled her eyes, but she smiled. That's the first uncertain answer you've ever given me. I'm practicing. We left the bridge in opposite directions. Celeste honored the pause for 32 days. I knew the exact number because I counted every one. We worked on the new charter together. She never used staff to arrange accidental meetings. She did not ask friends to report whether I seemed lonely. When she wanted my opinion, she sent a request with a subject line so formal it became funny. Request for voluntary discussion. Terrible cafeteria coffee. I sometimes accepted. Our conversations remained professional until the agenda ended. Then we would look at each other across the table, wanting more, and refusing to smuggle it through the boundary. On the 33rd day, the new cooperative received enough recurring pledges to fund the full next year without emergency cuts. The trustees approved independent scoring audits, student representation, public conflicts, disclosures, and a rule that no donor could control both selection and appeal. The crisis was over. I went to the greenhouse carrying the silver seal. After abolition, the trust had offered to place it in a museum case. I requested it for the student archive instead, with a label explaining both its history and its removal. Celeste was trimming a plant with small silver scissors. When she saw me, she set them down immediately. Was this meeting scheduled? She asked. No. May I stay? Yes. I placed the seal on the table. The cooperative is fully funded, I heard. The clause is gone. I was present. No students lose aid if I walk out that door. No trustee gains power if I stay. Celeste's fingers curled against the table. Correct. I hated the way you activated it. I know. Part of me also loved that someone saw me at my most humiliating moment and chose me loudly. Those feelings can both be true. She said nothing. I don't want a courtship review. I don't want a family contract. I don't want your team arranging photographs or your staff memorizing my coffee. Understood. I want dinner with you. I want arguments in the archive and bad sandwiches and the right to leave when I need to. I want you to tell me when your fear turns possessive, before it becomes a decision. I want to kiss you more than once. Slowly is negotiable. Celeste's eyes widened. Evan Hale, are you activating a clause? No, I'm asking a question. Celeste Rowan, will you date me? She came around the table and stopped an arm's length away. My honest answer is so enthusiastic it may violate several safety codes. Try yes. Yes. Any conditions? 1. If you begin giving yourself away to keep me happy, I will object. Loudly. Agreed. Mine is that if you arrange my life without asking, I leave the room. Pain flickered across her expression, followed by acceptance. Agreed. May I kiss you? Yes. Please. This time, when I kissed her, she put both hands on my shoulders. She waited there until I drew her closer. Then all her careful restraint broke within the boundary we had chosen. She kissed, like a person who had spent years making desire stand perfectly still. Fierce, trembling, almost angry with relief. When my back touched the edge of the table, she pulled away at once. Continue? She asked, breathless. Yes. I kissed her again. The seal lay beside us, powerless. Dating Celeste did not turn her normal. On our second official date, a girl from the debate team asked for my number to discuss the cooperative. Celeste smiled graciously, waited until the girl left, and said, I have imagined 12 lawful ways to prevent that conversation. You will use 0. I know. I resent personal growth. You can tell me you're jealous. I am catastrophically jealous. Thank you. The conversation is about audit forms. Audit forms have destroyed stronger relationships. I laughed and offered her my hand. Want reassurance? Yes? I'm on a date with you because I want to be. She took my hand. Effective. Annoyingly simple. On our third date, I canceled because a cooperative application failed and I felt responsible for fixing it alone. Celeste arrived at the archive, saw my closed door, and did not enter. She texted instead. Are you canceling because you need solitude? Or because you think needing help makes you expensive? I stared at the message for a long time. The second, may I come in? Yes. She sat beside me while we discovered that the application had failed because of a missing signature. She did not solve it for me. She did not turn my exhaustion into proof that I belonged to her. At midnight, she asked whether I wanted food. I said yes, without apologizing. We were not healed people rewarded with romance. We were two difficult 18-year-olds learning that love was not mind-reading, sacrifice, rescue, or leverage. It was a sequence of questions that had to remain real, even after we wanted the answers. Adrian approached me once before graduation. He found me shelving records in the archive, the only place on campus where fallen kings became folders eventually. My father says your cooperative model may be adopted by 2 other schools, he said. The documents are public. You could have taken the cross money and imposed your reforms from inside. Maybe. It would have been faster. Probably. He seemed irritated that I did not argue. Do you hate me? He asked. I considered it. Sometimes. Mostly I don't trust you. Sophie does. No. She misses what she thought you were. That's different. His jaw tightened. Celeste would have done the same things I did if you had not stopped her, maybe some of them, and you still chose her. She stopped. Then she helped remove the power that made stopping optional. He looked toward the shelf where the obsolete seal waited to be cataloged. People only care about consent when they can afford it, he said. Then build systems that make it affordable. Don't use pressure as proof that choice was fake all along. You sound like a trustee. I hope not, he almost smiled. I did not forgive him. I also did not need him to remain a villain in every future scene so I could remain the hero. He left the archive without a crown, which was the only way he might eventually learn the shape of his own head. At graduation, Sophie delivered no speech. She sat with her class, applauded other names, and crossed the stage when hers was called. The bookstore coalition had hired her for the summer. Her first published essay appeared in a neighborhood newsletter under her name alone. It had 3 awkward transitions and 1 beautiful paragraph about doors that should open from both sides. I sent no edits. I sent a short message. That paragraph is yours. Keep it. She replied with 1 word. Thanks. Celeste graduated first in our class. When her name was called, the hall stood because she was still admired, feared, and impossible to ignore. She crossed the stage, accepted her diploma, and looked at me rather than the cameras. She did not point, wink, or mouth a possessive claim. She pressed 2 fingers to her wrist, pride without possession. I returned the signal. When my name was called, the applause surprised me. Scholarship students stood first. Archive volunteers followed. Sophie stood. Celeste remained seated for exactly 1 second, as if trying to demonstrate moderation, then rose so quickly her chair nearly fell. I laughed on the stage. The graduation photograph captured me looking free. This time, Celeste asked for a copy. Yes, I told her. You can keep this one. She framed it on her desk beside a small empty stand where her family had expected the silver seal to sit. The seal belonged in the archive now. Its label did not call it romantic. It explained that Clause 7 had allowed either heir to initiate a public courtship review, had tied grant renewal to marriage, and had been abolished after students challenged the coercive design. Beneath that text, the new charter stated a simpler principle. No educational benefit shall depend upon any person's romantic consent. Visitors sometimes asked whether Celeste and I would marry anyway. At first, I said we were 18 and had homework. Later, I said the future was not a debt we owed curious people. Celeste usually said, if I ever ask, there will be no audience, no deadline, and no financial appendix. Then she would look at me with an intensity that made strangers step backward. She remained a little insane about me. The difference was that her desire no longer arrived, disguised as my obligation. Months after graduation, we returned to Kingswell for the cooperative's first annual report. Every original grant had been renewed. New applications were evaluated by disclosed criteria. Appeals went to a panel that included students and no original score. The bookstore literacy placements paid participants for their work. The system was not perfect. 3 meetings ran over 4 hours. 2 donors withdrew when they learned their children received no preference. 1 trustee resigned after being asked to disclose a conflict he considered traditional. Responsibility was less elegant than certainty. It was also real. After the meeting, Celeste and I walked through Founders Hall. The chandelier still threw fractured light across the floor. For a moment, I could see Sophie on the stage with my letter, Adrian accepting words he knew were mine, and Celeste entering with a weapon shaped like a promise. Do you regret it? I asked. Celeste knew which it I meant. Activating the clause? Yes. Coming for you? Never. Those happened at the same time. That is why it took me so long to separate them. She stopped beneath the chandelier. Do you regret accepting? I regret that I had to accept under pressure. I don't regret what we changed, or what we became after the pressure was gone. That answer is inconveniently mature. I have staff for that. She stared, then laughed because I had stolen her line. We left through the doors and crossed the glass bridge toward the library. Below us, new students moved through the courtyard carrying orientation folders. None knew the bridge had once been where Adrian threatened me, or where Sophie asked whether friendship could survive debt. Places did not heal. People gave them new memories. Halfway across, Celeste stopped. I have a question, she said. Does it affect 43 scholarships? No. Does it require legal counsel? Not unless your standards for dinner have become extreme. Proceed. Will you come home with me for dinner? My mother has promised not to discuss heirs, trusts, weddings, or the strategic value of our hypothetical children. That promise sounds heavily negotiated. There is a written appendix. Then yes. Celeste offered her hand but did not take mine. I looked at the open palm, remembering the silver seal she had once held in it before an entire school. Back then, her choice had arrived like a command, and mine like an emergency response. Now there was no stage, no king, no crush waiting to use my answer, and no claws beneath our feet. I put my hand in hers, and we crossed the rest of the bridge because we both chose the same direction.